Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to another Wednesday evening at the Sports Crib. A lot of things to talk about. Little baseball, little NFL draft. I mean, hey, things were all over the place tonight. I see Dave is back from his trip to Europe. Demetrius, who knows where he might be in the globe, but he's here, so that's all that matters.
Yes, sir. Actually, at home.
All right. Wow. Okay.
Hey, Dave, good to see you.
Hey, Demetrius. How's it going? Hey, James.
How you doing, Dave? The last time I talked to you, you were in Munich.
Right? Yeah. My wife and I went on a river cruise along the Danube River.
Nice.
Okay. All right. And uh, how is it now that you're back?
It was, nice, but man, we hated to leave the cruise. We were being pampered, but got to meet another Steelers fan who was from Tennessee and
Wow.
ran into the new college scouting coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. He was on the cruise too. So,
Small world.
and he was impressed because the other Steeler fan and we both had our terrible towels with us, which he noticed, and
Nice.
he said, you Steeler fans, you guys are everywhere. So
You guys do represent well. I got to admit that.
That is true. That is true. Even when I came out here, I was surprised at how many Steeler bars there were. So yeah, that is very true. Demetrius, back home, I imagine you're glad to get back there.
Yeah. It's I love what I do for a living. I love to travel, but sometimes you just you need to sleep in your own bed, right? And it's great when I can get back in time on Wednesday to do the sports crib, because it's one of my favorite activities this week. What's a good guy sitting around talking about sports? What's better than that?
Uh, I know we don't talk a lot about it, but we just had the baseball draft. And Dave, the only thing I could hear about over and over, besides the LSU players being taken 1 and 2, was what happened with the Steelers and why did they take this one instead of that one? What's
I
going
love
on
the
with it?
Steeler fan slipping. He means the
I
Pirates,
mean,
Dave.
I mean the Pirates.
I love the
yeah.
Steeler fan. He got the shirt on and everything. He can't help himself.
It was interesting because I think 7 out of the 11 first picks of the Pirates were pitchers, and they always say that you can never have enough pitching,
Yeah.
and I guess the Pittsburgh was definitely voting with their draft picks on the need for pitching, but the whole thing with Skeens, I don't really follow college baseball, but he seemed, from what I read, he was the pitcher most ready to make it to the bigs early. And I think that they may even try to get him onto a farm team in 2023. Play a couple minor league games in 2023. We'll see. As far as the pick itself, they had the other guy, Cruz, who was outfielder and was very highly rated. And the thing with the pitchers that you always have to worry about is their longevity. Will his arm hold up to pitching in the majors?
Yeah.
And if it does, and if he's a contributor for the next number of years, might prove to be a good pick. But I think it's going to be interesting to follow the careers of Cruz and Paul Skeens. He's the pitcher that the Pirates picked, and to see how they do in the Major League Baseball.
Yeah. I think there's a degree of this that's the Shohei Ohtani effect as well, because he was the only Division I player that had double figures in wins as a pitcher and home runs. The kid is no slouch in the field either. That's why.
Right. Right.
And the question is, like, he was the top two-way player in the class, and as a pitching prospect, he has the highest rating since Strasburg came out, right? And
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, Dave's point about he's eventually going to have an arm injury. They all do. He's going to have an arm incident because that's where it is. But when he's got this kind of talent on both sides of the ball, somebody in that room said, "There's your next Shohei Ohtani right there." And I don't understand why anybody. I would like to do business a certain way. I think it was a very smart pick. As someone who's a little geeky about this, I think it was a brilliant pick because if this guy hits, they got a generational talent. They got
Right.
a generational talent, and I don't know if you can pass up the opportunity for generational talent.
You got to take the risk, and then the other thing is with the modern surgery now. Like the Tommy John surgery, that's extended a lot of career, including. You just mentioned his name.
Steven Strasburg.
Strasburg. He had the surgery,
Yep.
and so it's extended a lot of careers.
And
So maybe that reduces the risk a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of guys have it proactively now. They know,
Right.
like a really good trainer knows what pitches you throw. They understand how that impacts the ligament in your elbow, and guys will just go get that thing tightened up in advance, right? Because an arm incident's gonna happen. But when your scouts are saying he's the best pitching prospect since Strasburg, and he's the best two-way player in the class, and we all about to see what Shohei Ohtani's doing, and you're the Pirates, you have to do business a certain way, which means you have to be really smart with your draft picks because you're never going to be the team that throws $500 million at somebody. You don't operate in that world. So I think to me it could end up being 4 years from now we're talking about the Pirates winning the East. We'll go back to this conversation, and that guy will probably be part of it. So,
yeah, we'll see. I know, Demetrius, you're right, especially right now. You're kind of the baseball purist on the program. So, your Tigers, you guys, Matt Manning, he combined with for a no-hitter.
yeah.
You guys drafted Max Anderson in the second round. What's going on with the Tigers?
It's a lot of what David just said. Once the Mike Ilitch, the original founder of Little Caesars Pizza, passed away, I'm going to say 5 years ago, maybe, his son has taken over. And Mr. Ilitch ran the organization a different way. Right? He would cut Prince Fielder a check for $280 million. Jordan Zimmerman and his son is running it a different way. We're trying to operate more like the Pirates. Because as much as we'd like to believe Detroit's a big market, in baseball, we're not. We're a small market. So we have to draft well. You can never draft enough pitchers. So how many? I'm sorry, David mentioned a stat about how many of the Pirates picks.
I think it was 7 out of the 11 first picks.
That's how
So.
certain teams have to do it. Because you're not going to hit on all 7. But if you hit on 4, fantastic, right? It's a volume game. Tigers are doing a very similar thing. Manning is a guy they drafted maybe 3 years ago. He had an arm incident. He's recovered from it. His stuff is lights out. They've got 3 more guys I could start talking about who could fit in the same mold because they just kept drafting pitchers. And because the numbers statistically say you're not going to hit on everybody. And then of the set you hit on, some of them are going to have arm incidents. But if you can get 2 or 3, Verlander is our best example of all time. You get a Verlander once every decade, great. He might not even be the one. A kid named Tarek Skubal might be the better of the 2, and there's a kid named Faedo, and there's another kid named Spencer Turnbull. You just keep drafting pitchers. That's what you do. I think they actually with their first pick they took an outfielder, the best prep player in the nation. But I think what you see with those picks are you never stop drafting pitchers. You just don't. You can't go wrong. I mean, you will go wrong, but if you have enough of them, you'll get a few of them right. And I think that's the concept the Tigers are taking now, and the young talent in Detroit is starting to develop. We're obviously not there yet. I think I called for next year to be the year of the Tigers. They're hanging around 5 games under 500, and in the crappy division, which we'll talk later. But I think their time's coming. A lot of good young arms in the system in Detroit.
Yeah, if
I'm
you can
excited.
if you can bat 250 or 300 in your drafting of pitchers, you're doing pretty good.
Exactly. It's like the game. You can fail 7 out of 10 times and go to the Hall of Fame. A 300 hitter goes to the Hall of Fame, right? A lifetime 300 hitter, that guy's probably in the Hall of Fame. And that is legitimately failing 7 out of 10 times. That's why baseball is different than every other sport.
Yeah. Speaking of being different, I haven't seen a lot of him, but I did watch some of this young kid, Elly De
Oh,
La
Cruz.
Cruz.
Yeah, De La Cruz. Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you seen a rookie steal home plate?
Yeah.
I mean, this kid stole. He got on first. A quintessential base runner.
Yep.
Stole second, then stole third, and then stole home.
Right.
So Demetrius, as I said, right now you're a baseball expert. If this kid is not the rookie of the year, who is?
So Corbin Carroll is, but I'll get back to him in a minute. But
Okay.
this kid is exciting, right? What De La Cruz is doing. The question is just about sustainability. If you tell me he's going to do this for the rest of the year, it's probably his award. He's an exciting player. The way he did that was old school Jackie Robinson stuff. He just walked down third baseline, pitcher's not paying attention, gone, right? That's exciting stuff to watch. That's baseball being baseball. He knows what he can do well. He does it well. But I mean, his
Especially in this era.
right? And I mean, he's a 21-year-old Dominican kid who right now he's hitting 325. If you extrapolate his numbers, he's going to end up with like, I don't know, 18 homers and I don't know, 50 stolen bases. And his OPS is like 915 without getting too stat geeky. That's a really good number. It is because when you're on base and you're a slow guy, it's impressive. His singles automatically become doubles. So he hits a single, he's in scoring position because he can steal second base. That's why it's even more with him. A double can be a triple. If he hits it in the alley, this kid's going to do inside the park this year, right? He's that talented. Now, the reality is Corbin Carroll's an outfielder in Arizona, and people are sleeping on him. He's hitting 289, but he's got 18 and 48 right now, and he stole 26 bases. His OPS is over 900. That guy's, but he's hurt, right? So that's the thing. If he comes back from injury, continues to play, Corbin Carroll's a legitimate, I would say Corbin Carroll's the lead, right? De La Cruz has to catch him. De La Cruz is just exciting. People in Cincinnati are excited about what he can be. Now, as rookie of the year, which is the question, if De La Cruz keeps playing the way he is, those numbers are insane for a rookie. They just are. They're really, really impressive numbers, and it'll be a contest. Corbin Carroll's been doing it for day one. He's played more, but he's producing. And that guy is a legitimate future all-star. He might have made the team this year. He's a future all-star for sure. So I think there is a legitimate competition. He's got a teammate in Cincinnati. His name escapes me. I feel like I want to say like Max Stein or something like that, who's actually pretty good. But De La Cruz is going to get all the hype in the second half. So my short answer to your question is, if not him, who is? The name's Corbin Carroll. But if De La Cruz continues what he's been doing from an excitement standpoint and the productivity, he'll win the award. He will generate runs and wins with the way he plays. And there's not a lot of guys in baseball right now that plays that way. So he's going to get a lot of publicity, a lot of coverage. Corbin Carroll is helping Arizona win games though. So it's not over. It's not over, but it'll be fun to watch. As a baseball guy, I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, it should be. I did forget about Corbin Carroll, and I have him on one of my baseball fantasy teams too.
Yeah, he's
Like
really good player.
Like you said, though, he's hurt.
He's hurt. Yeah,
out of sight, out of mind. You know how that goes.
That's exactly what's happening right now. Yep.
That's it. 16 years after his father, Vlad Guerrero Jr. wins the home run derby. This is the first father and son possibility to make it into the Hall of Fame, because right now we don't have one. We have either the father or the son. Yeah. What do you think about the possibility of both of them getting in, Demetrius?
Very good, very good. Now we're early, right? He's 5 years in.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
right. But if you project, if he plays 12 years at the numbers he's put up so far, because his age 21 year, he only played like half a season. I don't remember the exact number, 60-ish games. Um, but if he projects, particularly like the last two and a half, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. He's a 280 guy, 30 and 90 with a 900 OPS type of guy. If he does that for 12 years, it's easy, right? He's just getting to his prime. So there's a case that can be made that he'll far exceed what he's done. That's what he's done in his age 21 year to his age 25 year. 280, 30, and 90 with a 900 OPS. Those numbers are going to get better, right? I think that it's about now. He doesn't have the kind of body that suggests he can sustain this for 12 years. And I'm trying to be nice and not insulting in the way I say that. But he's got the natural swing. He's got he plays the game with a positive sort of aggressive style. Simple answer of it is it's about the longevity piece. Hall of Fame is a longevity measure. You got to do this for another 10 years. He does this for 10 more years. This isn't even a question. This is easy. Because he's that good. Now, can he sustain it like his dad did? We'll see. But I think that if I had an amount of money I didn't care about, I'd put it on. I take some odds on that. I take some odds that he'd do it.
What do you think, Dave? You familiar with the father and son?
No, unfortunately, I'm not. I think it would be pretty awesome though.
Yeah,
having a father and son in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's you have other father and sons, that have played and have played well or managed in the league. Tony Francona, his dad was a major leaguer, and my wife actually knew both of them up in Beaver County, PA, because
nice.
Tito, the dad, was the recreation coordinator up there, and then Tony would work there during the summer. So,
Nice.
Sue always got a kick out of seeing him managing the teams. Yeah. But I think it's really cool. Well, when you have that kind of a legacy that passes on.
Yeah. I wonder if Griffey Sr.'s ever got any consideration. That's the one that jumps out. Because my first thought was, is Griffey Sr. not in the Hall of Fame? But I don't know a ton about his career stats. I know he played a while.
Good.
He was good, right?
Was good.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah.
I wonder if he's ever been on the ballot and what kind of voting percentage he garnered on the ballot. Because that's the one that, my first thought was, I'm surprised Griffey Sr.
I think was he with the Reds at the tail end of the big red machine?
Yeah.
And so then you had a lot of guys, Tony Perez.
You just drowned out, right? You drowned in that group, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I had to look it up. I was like, you mean it? There's no father and son, and like I said, it's either the father or the son, and
But, nobody else really jumps out as a possibility off the top of my head, other than the Griffeys. I really can't.
Because I thought for sure, like you said, but right now that seems to be it.
Wait, Bobby Bonds obviously isn't in there, right? Oh well, no, Barry's not in. Bobby might be in, Barry's not in, right? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you speak about Barry, because Barry, was denied again here in December.
Yep.
I think it was the writers, and he had some, kind of choice words, but I'm torn with Barry. I mean, I still have this scenario in my head where he got on the plane wearing a size 6.5, and when he got on out here in LA, he weighed a 7.5.
Right.
I'm not taking. I'm not saying. He went to court and won. I
don't care, man. We're smart. Yeah. Look, the great comedian Richard Pryor once had a sketch that I can't do the whole thing, but he said to his wife or girlfriend, who had caught him doing something he shouldn't be doing, he literally said to her, "Are you going to believe me or your lying eyes?"
Yeah.
right. Okay, Barry. I don't know Barry Bonds. My problem is this, and I know he was a pirate, and I'm not trying to, jump down that rabbit hole. He could have never taken anything and potentially been the greatest player to ever live. He didn't need it. Fundamentally, grown men can make whatever decision they want. And I have a whole diatribe on steroids. If I was a AAA player who was pretty good and my lifelong dream had been get to the majors, and some guy said, if you do this, you can get there, I don't know what decision I would have made. If I'm some Dominican kid who can support my family for 5 generations with one contract, see the shortstop from Baltimore whose name escapes me, Miguel Tejada, right? Or if I'm, any one of those guys, you take this, it might impact your sex life in your 50s, but you get a $40 million. If I'm Brady Anderson, a guy who had AAA level skills, cup of coffee in the show, and then he goes from hitting 18 home runs to hitting 40. And then he signs a contract that's taking care of his great-grandchildren. I don't know, as a human being, and I don't want to, I didn't mean to jump down that rabbit hole. Barry Bonds didn't need that. Barry Bonds I struggle with because he was already on track to be one of the greatest players ever when his hat size was still 6.5 or whatever it was, right?
But I guess my question is do the steroids really help you make contact with the ball?
No, it does not. That's not what it does. It helps your muscles recoup better from injury. It absolutely allows you to work out better and get stronger. There is no question. There's documented evidence. So depending on what you take, and you can see rookie Mark McGwire, and you can see St. Louis Mark McGwire. You can see it. And if you're right, and if you're stronger or you're recovering from injuries better, and your bat speed improves, it's not about seeing it better. They're good enough already. Barry Bonds was born one of the greatest players ever. He could always hit a baseball. But when he allegedly began enhancing his performance, he hit the ball harder and further than anybody ever. And that's how Brady Anderson goes from being an 18 home run guy a year to hitting 40 and 44 or something like that in back-to-back seasons. That's what it is. And I don't even have a problem with it. I can't express enough that I'm not the guy going, those guys should. No, I don't know what I would have done if I was those guys. If someone would have said, you can beat a center fielder for the Tigers if you take these pills. And if it's just you're going to be 5 years in the bigs, you're going to make $100 million, take care of your family for generations, and you get to live your dream. I would have had to stop and think about it. I got to be honest.
For some of the players that we mentioned during that era, but it came down to a thing where everyone else is doing it. I mean, we all know how that goes. If everybody else in the league is doing so and so, and and it's definitely sports where you have to keep up with the Joneses.
I don't think everybody was doing it though. I don't think Griffey ever did it.
No,
I think there's a bunch of guys that didn't do it.
Yeah, but there was a bunch of guys that was too.
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm kind of with you. Well, no, if you put a pile of money in me in front of me, I definitely know what I would have done. But
and Dave didn't answer the question, so we know what Dave would have done. Dave ducked the question. Dave ducked the question.
I mean, I think it comes down to, what were the rules at the time? In some cases they kind of went backwards, before the steroids were against the rules. But then sometimes in sports they go overboard. And I'm not too familiar with the baseball's rules. Yeah. But I know that in football there are over-the-counter cold medicines that if an NFL football player is feeling sick, goes to the drugstore and takes one of those, he's going to pop positive and get and risk being suspended. And that's for an over-the-counter cold medicine.
That's a crappy union. Your union should know what those are. Know how. I blame the union for that. Well, and the league. That's silly.
Yeah, but so I guess what my issue is
there's a lot of that. Go ahead, Dave.
Are they using the drugs to get an unfair competitive advantage, or hey, were they sick or something like this, and we're trying to recover? Because it's also happened to some players that have been coming back from injury,
right?
And then they find that they were using the human growth hormones in order to speed up their recovery so that they could get back to playing.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that's not trying to get an unfair competitive advantage, but
Exactly.
it's a tough one, because no matter where you draw the line, people are going to go right up to that line as close as they can get to it.
Yep.
And some people end up crossing over that line,
Exactly.
especially if it moves at all.
Right. Exactly. That's the key. The last thing you said is the most important thing. If the line moves on a virtual daily basis, then you just go for it, don't you? At some point you go, I'm willing, the statistical risk of me getting caught and the consequences of getting caught are not enough to deter me from not trying this. And I think that's where we landed in the late 90s in baseball.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, it's funny how things change. Where like you say, Dave, you can take an over-the-counter drug now and pop positive, but LT can have his personal pharmaceutical man come to the stadium. Like you say, things have changed. I
You
remember
throw LT under the bus unprovoked. He didn't ask for that.
Hey, it's fact. It's not throwing him under
100%
the
fact.
bus.
100% fact.
It's fact. Who's my man? The Pirates. Doc. What's his name? Said
Doc Ellis.
No hitter.
Doc Ellis threw a no hitter high on mushrooms or something.
Yeah,
acid. He dropped acid.
He dropped acid and threw a no hitter.
Yeah, I
think I've mentioned before, there's an exceptional documentary on Doc Ellis. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It is great. It's great.
Oh, man. Well, Don's not here, but I'm going to, once again, kind of pull on your expertise here. And this is actually a kind of a softball because the Spurs gave Pop his extension. And that same night, Wembanyama said that he shut down. Well, the Spurs said that he shut down.
Yeah.
This is nothing new from Pop. Pop put half the players on a commercial flight and sent them back to San Antonio. So I mean, Pop does things the way that he wants. Now, do you think that now that Pop has this extension, that he's going to be able to bring this young guy ahead slowly instead of putting him on a fast track? I mean, look at who he has to work with. Tim Duncan's working with him. You have Manu there. Yeah, I mean, you have so many examples of not just good basketball players, but excellent citizens. What's your thoughts on this, Demetrius?
I don't know that this kid could have gotten a better place to go to. Now, everything in me wanted the Pistons to not get screwed in the draft lottery, but that's another podcast for another day. I hate the draft lottery. We had the worst record. We should have the first pick. Victor couldn't have gotten a better landing spot for all the things you just said. The structure there is proven. It's like New England and the Steelers in football. There is a structure at the top of certain organizations that cascades down. In the NBA, the Spurs are at the top of that list. Popovich is one of my favorite people in sports, period, player or coach. He's in my Mount Rushmore of people. He's sarcastic. He's super smart. He's excellent at his job. I'm a Popovich guy, and I don't like many non-Detroit affiliated people. It's a great place. He will bring him along at the right pace. Pop is not worried about his job. So if he thinks he needs to take 2 years and work this kid, the kid is so talented, though. It's not going to be that. You got to put him on the floor. He's got to learn how to be a grown man, playing in a league with other grown men. They obviously got to put some weight on the kid's frame. But then you got to be careful how you do that, both literally how you do it, what he eats, and how quickly you do it, and just how to use him. We've never seen a skill set like this guy in the league. So there's no blueprint on he should play. I mean, you would assume he's a center, except his skills are that of a point guard, right? You could, in theory, play him at the 3. I mean, Popovich is brilliant though, and he'll know how to do that. And that could change within a game, within a quarter, how he's used. So I think that high level, the Spurs were probably the ideal spot for him. I mean, Miami's got a really good infrastructure in that organization, and there are others, but I don't know that he could have found a better landing spot than San Antonio, both because of Popovich and Manu and all the people within that organization. But more than anything, he's in San Antonio, Texas. He's not playing in Madison Square Garden, having to talk to the New York media every night. He's in San Antonio, Texas. I was in San Antonio 2 weeks ago, as you know. They're going to love him. He's going to be able to come along at his own pace. The expectations will be leveled. The organization will put him in a position to succeed. Outside of him being a Piston, I probably couldn't be happier for the kid.
Yeah. San Antonio is a pretty nice city. I was down there years and years ago. And I've been. If I was going to move to Texas, it would either be Austin or San Antonio. It would definitely.
It's too hot down there. I ain't moving down there. I don't care where it is. It's just too hot.
Did you go on the Riverwalk?
I did. It was 106 degrees, so I don't think I enjoyed it as much as you would have hoped I would. I was there 3 days. It was 109, 106, and a cool 94. My last day, it was a cool 94. So, yeah.
Do you think that CP3 will be on the Warriors as a sixth man? I don't know if you saw the remarks that he made when the reporter asked him, are you coaching now? But anyway, right. But what's your thoughts? I look at the Warriors, and I it's not that I don't appreciate CP3 being there, but other than Looney and Sarkic, they don't have anybody on their roster over 6'9". So,
exactly.
What's your thoughts? Is he going to be part of a sign and trade deal?
Absolutely. I said this. I'm assuming this for me, Dave. I didn't want to jump it. I can do. I won't take long, so we don't spend too much more time on the NBA. I said when this happened a few weeks ago, this was not Golden State traded for Chris Paul. It was not that. This was Golden State moved Jordan Poole. That's what it was. And everybody, he's got a $30.8 million salary. Chris Paul is 38 years old, maybe. Somebody at the deadline is going to say, we're Chris Paul away from competing. That team's going to call Golden State. And they're going to give Golden State a wing or a big that's taller than 6'9". And Golden State's going to say, yes, sir, please. And they're going to be out of this cap situation. They went from having to pay Jordan Poole a shit ton of, we're not at the 9 o'clock, my bad. A ton of money for 4 years or 3 years maybe, to only having to pay Chris Paul for 1 year. The business of basketball sometimes gets lost on people who are fans of basketball. On the Sports Crib, we often are able to navigate both, and that's why I like it so much. Trading for CP3 was a business move to get Jordan Poole out of their locker room because of the fight with Draymond, and it was untenable, is the word they use. It's untenable to keep Jordan Poole in that locker room. So that was the most uncomfortable introductory press conference I've ever seen. He wasn't at the facility and all the players were there. He was in a suit and he had his big, none of that. He was standing in front of a picture of the UNLV Thomas and Mack Center or something, and he was just like, yeah, okay. And so nobody can come out and say it, but it's clear. Short answer to your question, yes, he will be traded. If they can move him before the season starts, they will. The much more likely scenario is trade deadline. That's what makes the most sense as a business. Some other team, because of injury or player development or whatever, is going to say, we're pretty good. We're right on the cusp if we just had Chris Paul. And then they're going to call Golden State and go, what does it take? Golden State going to pick their roster apart, and you're going to see some deal. Chris Paul in late February will not be wearing a Golden State jersey. He will probably have to come off the bench because you're right. They can't keep putting short dudes on the floor. Basketball is still game played by tall men. And even he, at his height, because I'm 6'4", and people call me tall. I would be a point guard in the NBA, right? I'm a small guy in the NBA, right? So it might be for a Paul George or a Pascal Siakam, because Pascal's probably going to get moved at some point. But he will get moved. He will get moved. He knows it, and everybody's comfortable enough behind the scenes. He's 38. He knows the business, so he's fine. He's not long for Golden State because their objective was to get rid of Jordan Poole's contract, and that's the only way they could do it. So now they'll wait it out, find a good landing spot for Chris Paul, and they'll make another trade. As you said, likely for somebody taller than 6'9", because they don't have a lot of those guys on their roster. So
yeah, like I said, two.
Yep.
A couple.
Yeah.
You know, this last question got a little balled up here, but
I was gonna need you to explain it. Help me out on this.
I was asking about Dame,
right?
Because Dame has said that he doesn't want to go to Boston.
Yep.
He doesn't want to go to the Bucks. And of course, I can understand why he wouldn't want to go to Utah, even though they could probably put together the best package. But
Dave's family ain't no black people in Utah. He knows.
Well, I mean, you know, but
I've been to Utah. It's a fine place. I'm joking.
But then again, you know, I mean, you know, it's not that easy being black in Boston either.
Exactly.
So exactly. You know, but he also says that he wants, you know, his main reason for leaving Portland is because he wants a ring.
Right.
Now, to me, he has a better chance getting a ring in either Philly, Boston, or
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Yep.
Because I don't see the consistency in Miami to win a title. I mean, I can see them, you know, I mean, to me, they're kind of like the Lakers of the East. You know, they'll always be in the playoffs. They'll go far in the playoffs in a lot of cases, but I just don't see them having that cohesion to be able to get them over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of like, and I'm going to go to football here. They're kind of like the Buffalo Bills when they went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. Just because you get there don't mean you have to win.
Right.
So what's your thoughts on Dame being stuck on going to Miami? Is it the lifestyle? I mean, you know, after being stuck up in Portland you know, for the last decade or what?
Yeah. I'm going to steal a Pittsburgh term, a term they often used to describe the old stadium. They said it was located at the confluence of three rivers, right? The Ohio, the Monongahela, and help me out, David, what's the other one? Allegheny, right? So the confluence. What's happening here is they're trying to attempt to get a confluence of what Dame would like in terms of going to a competitive team, what Dame would like in terms of a place to live and move his family, and what Portland needs in terms of compensation for his talent. That confluence isn't working out, right? And that's what it is. Utah is the best option for Portland. They could get the best compensation for Dame's talents from Utah. The best lifestyle for Dame, not for me, because it's still Florida, is Miami. Dame would like to be in Miami. But then when Miami gives up proper compensation, you've diminished the quality of the team. The best opportunity to win a title, like you said, probably Boston or Milwaukee. Therein lies your problem. How do you satisfy this confluence of interests for everybody? Because you can't. Because I think Dame wants to go to Miami because it's Miami. I think he might have a relationship with Jimmy Butler, and they're a really well-run organization. Now, if you're Portland, what do you want back from Miami? When you take that off of Miami, the new team that Dame goes to without, I don't know, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, whatever it is you're trying to do. If it's Bam, then it's a cancel Christmas. That team isn't competing in the East even, right? So Philly could put together a package. Portland doesn't want that package. That package includes Tobias Harris and $38 million strapped on the back of Tobias Harris. They don't want $38 million with Tobias Harris. The place to go, Boston. Boston can put together. Boston doesn't want to give up Jaylen Brown, right? So what kind of package can Boston put together? Milwaukee can put draft compensation, couple young players. All these competing interests make the perfect deal impossible. So what happens is somebody's got to blink. Somebody's got to say, okay. Dame's got to say, okay, I like Miami, but I can visit Miami. I'm a multimillionaire. I'll go play in Milwaukee. I've lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Not a bad place. And they love that basketball team, by the way. And now it's Dame with Giannis. And if you can keep Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton on that roster, that team competes in the East, right? If you go to Philly and Portland's willing to take Tobias Harris, some draft compensation, and the $38 million contract of Tobias Harris, and they've got Dame, Embiid, then keep Tyrese Maxey. Philly doesn't want to put Tyrese Maxey in the deal. Portland's almost certainly going to demand Tyrese Maxey be in the deal. Now Philly is easily the best team in the East. So it's all these competing interests, and nobody can find it right. They're going to need to pull in a third team, probably, to get any of these deals done. That's how it's probably going to work. Portland has made it clear they're not giving Dame away. Dame has made it clear he's not going to play for Portland. Miami is just sitting back waiting. Miami feels like we're just going to let this go, and eventually you're going to make the phone call. It's kind of fun to watch. It will get done. Dame will never suit up for Portland again. Somebody's got to blink. It's a three-way game of chicken. I don't think Boston's in because I think Jaylen Brown's name has to come up, and they're not going to do that. Philly might buckle on Tyrese Maxey. Portland might say, screw it. We're singing Utah, bro, because we got the best package from Utah. But I don't think he'll go play for Utah. So, but that's what it is. You got this confluence in the spirit of Pittsburgh of interests that are clashing, and somebody's got to blink. And they will, because they always do.
Yeah, that's we'll see.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm not even sure that Miami is the best option if he wants to try.
I don't think so either. No, it's not. Boston and Milwaukee are the best options. Philly would be the best, but Philly's going to get depleted in a trade. It won't. Philly's a good option depending on what you get. But if they give up Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, that Philly team is depleted because those are two really good basketball players. So they're going to get it done somehow. Business will eventually, deadlines get deals done. Like deadlines. It might not be until training camp, but there would be a real hard deadline that exists somewhere. That's when the deal gets done. And right now, they're in the off season. Nobody's pressed to make this deal happen. Kind of like union and league negotiations. People, they're going to go on strike. No, they won't. At some point, somebody's going to miss checks, and their wife's going to say, hey, we can't miss checks. And then they buckle, and they get deals done. It'll happen. My guess would actually still be Miami, though.
What if they sent the Beard?
What do they do with the Beard? Is that the question? Or where do they send him?
What if they sent the Beard to Portland?
Portland don't want no part of it. Why would Portland want to pay that guy? No. I hear you. Portland doesn't want that. And the Beard doesn't want that. I think Beard wants to go back to Houston. And they're trying to figure out something there, but I don't know why. But Portland will not accept James Harden in return for Damian Lillard. That is absurd. It makes them older, and they're not trying to get older. They've got a core of young players, and they want to add draft capital and more young talent. And they're right in doing so. If Dame wants out, they got to rebuild. They need to get an exciting player who's been in the league 3 years or less. They need to get cap space, and they need to get draft compensation. And if I'm Portland, that's the parameters. What do you need in a scope level? I need at least one really good young player under 24. I need extensive draft compensation, meaning multiple picks, probably multiple ones. And I need a way to open up some cap space. So don't try and send me James Harden because that makes me older and broker. Right? It doesn't help my young players. So Tyrese Maxey, a first, and I might take Tobias because Tobias is a good player. But if you got an expiring contract, and you send me Tyrese Maxey, an expiring contract, and a 1, that gets the deal done. If I'm Portland, I take that. Shake Dame's hand and say, congratulations. James Harden. Nobody really wants James Harden, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, but you can't, except maybe Houston.
Except Houston, yeah.
But you can't give up your future there with Maxey. when you
Yes,
still
you can. If
Ooh.
for Damian Lillard, you can, because that opens up a 3-year window to win a championship. You can
Yeah,
open up a 3-year window to win a championship now.
but then you're stuck with the beard because
Oh,
you
you got to move the beard separate from Dame. You got to move the beard, even if it's pennies on the dollar. That's an addition by subtraction, because you get to put the ball in the hands of Tyrese Maxey. Now, if Dame Lillard costs you Tyrese Maxey, fine. You want Dame to be your primary ball handler anyway. But Dame, Embiid, and some solid role players can win the East. Because Embiid is one of the best players on that side of the board, right? I don't know. If I'm Philly, I'd give them Maxey. I'd give them a draft pick and an expiring contract to make that work. Dame's that good. It makes them the favorites in the East. And then I'll move the beard separately in some other deal. I don't even care what I get back.
Okay, but see now you mentioned it there when you said you move James on a different deal because
Sure.
do you think that James and Dame can coexist on the same basketball court?
No, it's only one ball. There's only one ball.
That's what.
No, and that's not even trying to be cute. James Harden is a ball dominant player. He has always been. He deferred a little bit to Embiid. Damian Lillard has played on teams with other good players, as C.J. McCollum. Dame can facilitate when needed to be, and if Embiid's having an off night, he can put 40 on the board. Dame has always shown that flexibility to play within any system. James Harden has only succeeded in one system. The system where he has the ball for 20 of the 24 seconds on the shot clock. And if that's the kind of offense you want to run, James Harden dribbling at the top of the key, spread the floor, and you got shooters, James Harden can still be a really good player on a team in this league if that's the kind of team you have constructed. That's not who Philly is. Philly's got one of the best bigs in the history of the game, possibly. He's got to have the ball. And if you bring over Dame, Dame's got to create, and Harden doesn't have the ball. A non-ball dominant James Harden is an average player in this league, and you can't pay an average player $40 million. Just my opinion, but that's what I've seen. So let's get Dave back in this conversation and talk some football, because he was a little bit interested in that, but then I jumped down the beard rabbit hole.
I was like a high school kid listening to a 400-level college course.
But
I think that was a compliment. I'm taking it.
Yeah, but
It is.
But there is one more subject that we have to cover.
Oh, sorry.
Because there's two new rules. Well, actually, one rule and one thing that I think we've all been looking forward to for quite some time that has been implemented. We talked about the flopping rule that was going to be tried during the summer league. Well, that's going to be part of the game now. The referee can assign one technical foul shot and possession of the ball to the team, and to the guy that flops, he gets an I'm not sure how that works, but anyway, it doesn't count against his foul total. And the other rule is that if a coach makes a successful challenge during the game, he now gets a second one.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on those two rules?
Yeah. So
start talking football.
In terms of the integrity of the game, the flopping rule was absolutely necessary. Had to happen. It was getting to be ridiculous. Now, the downside to that is you're giving more power to the officials.
We do call that the Harden rule.
The Harden rule, right. But you've given more power to officials to make subjective calls. Have fun with that. Have fun with that. But it had to be addressed. It had gotten to soccer levels. Flopping had gotten to soccer levels. So they had to do something. Now, so just on the principle of the knowledge that there is a rule, I think you deter that somewhat. If the officials just do their jobs, that should be fine. The other one is brilliant. I thought coaches were being penalized when they were getting calls right. And so this is accountability toward the officials. If you messed up, I challenge it, and I was right, you messed up, why should it cost me a timeout? That one's brilliant. I feel like I want that in the NFL, and right now the NFL doesn't have it. And I could be wrong. But I think, no, you just keep it, right? So it might already be in the NFL. I think that was long overdue, and it just makes sense. If I'm right, don't punish me, right? The flopping rule had to happen. That's an integrity of the game thing. And the NBA, more than any other league, is often driven by fan perception. Fan perception. If enough fans say flopping's ridiculous, they'll do something about it. Because their product, their fan base and their product, there's no league more connected to their fan base in terms of product on the field. I wish baseball would be less connected, but I'm not going to do that diatribe again. Leave the game alone. If you don't like baseball, go watch something else. I got on Black Sox tonight. I don't want to hear it. The NBA has always been if you guys need us to create city jerseys, we'll make crazy jerseys. If you want us to paint stuff on the court, we'll paint stuff on the court. We don't care. The NBA will shoot shirts into the crowd with a gun. The NBA doesn't care. Their fans are everything. The NFL is about the shield. It's always been about the shield. It always will be about the shield. I'm a fan who gets it. It's probably the reason I like all three sports in different ways. Baseball is nostalgia. It's me and my dad and my brothers. Football is about the Lions have to win a damn Super Bowl one day. And basketball is borderline unwatchable for me. As much as I know about that game, non-Piston games, I don't watch that many. It's hard. It's the game has gotten bad. Nah, I shouldn't say bad. Bad is subjective. The game is different. For all the things we just talked about. Flopping, ball dominant James Harden, big threes, because that league now has 7 or 8 teams that you can put your money on. One of those 7 teams are going to win a title. My Pistons are not one of those teams, so that league is very tough for me right now. When we get good again, I'll care again. I love the Lions when they win 0-16. And I'll love them when they win the North this year and go to the NFC Championship game, right? And baseball, I will always love. I do not care how many games the Tigers win. There is nothing like sitting in a ballpark with a hot dog on a beautiful summer day watching a baseball game. And I don't care what anybody else says. They're all different. But the NBA, to your question and your point, they're connected to their fans. And enough people have been screaming about the flopping. The other thing just made sense. Long overdue. That just made sense.
Well, I have to interject. Sue was not watching baseball, basketball, or football today. Very slow period.
Right. Well, this is the only day, right? This is the only day of the year where there's no games, right?
Right. Yep. Day after the All-Star game, right?
Yep.
But she's working at home went by her office, and then she had her phone with Wimbledon on.
Exactly.
So she was watching tennis.
She got her fix.
And I guess the last American, I think he was the last American in the men's division, Chris Eubanks. He's like 6'8", looks like a basketball player.
Yes.
Well, he lost.
He got knocked out.
But he came out of nowhere. Sue was saying that he was like ranked 200 or something. And if he had won this match, he would have been in the semifinal. And I watched a couple of the rounds that he was playing. And I mean, he was pretty incredible. I mean, to me, he looked like a basketball player because he's just so tall and thin. He had these skinny little legs. But that's what Sue was doing sports-wise today while she was working. She had her eye on Wimbledon.
Yeah, he's got that Pete Sampras type build.
Yeah.
That tall will
covers a lot of ground. He moves very well side to side. Covers a lot of ground. He got a really good forehand. I think he'll be around for a while. I don't think that guy's going anywhere.
He's like 27, I think.
Yeah,
so he still has a few years.
He's got some time to keep playing. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, let's talk a little NFL here. And Dave, I'm going to throw you right on the spot here. First of all, did everybody get the article?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good article.
So the outgoing Players Association chief, Demetrius, says that he calls for the elimination of the Rooney Rule, and he proposes some sweeping changes in hiring practices. Dave, what did you think of that article?
Well, first of all, let's take the Rooney name off of the rule. What is the rule? And, and what the Rooney Rule required, originally what it required is that every time you went to hire a head coach, you were required to interview at least one minority candidate. And then as the years have gone by, they've expanded that to like coordinator positions. And then the other thing that they've done along those lines is if a team hires a coach or a coordinator from your team, they get a draft choice. And so they've actually really incentivized NFL teams to hire minority coaches. That's the idea. Now, the issue that they have is right now there's only a few people. I think it's like 3 or 4 coaches that are African American. You know, coaches like Tony Dungy, he retired, and right now there's only a very few. You know, in terms of what he wants to do, I think it's overstepping. You know, he's talking about having the government come in and you know, require this and basically establish quotas is the way I see it. And I think that the teams, you know, really they should be able to hire the best available person. And to me, what's more important than the head coach position is what does the pipeline look like? And so, like, for example, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, 13 out of the 18 coaches are African American. And so to me, I mean, now NFL teams don't always hire their coaches from NFL staffs. You know, sometimes they'll go to the college ranks or outside of the NFL. But to me, what the key is, you know, what does the pipeline look like? And, you know, when I look at the Steelers, and I think that that's what all teams should be doing is to be looking at their staffs throughout. So the Steelers, you know, they have a coordinator, they have position coaches, and they have assistant coaches that are all African American. I'm not a big, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of affirmative action, but I am firmly in favor of fair hiring practices. And so that if there's discrimination taking place, well, then that needs to be eliminated. But that said, I think that really the focus on the incoming, because DeMaurice Smith, he's leaving, and he needed to make a statement. He made his statement. Now you have Lloyd Howe coming in. Where is he? He's the guy that the NFLPA hired as the incoming guy. Where is he going to take them on this issue? So we got some background noise. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I don't know if that's me or not. Anyway, but that, you know, that's basically my thought, and I think that if more teams followed the Steelers' example, I think it would be a non-issue.
See, I think that the Steelers are more the exception than the rule. Kind of like the Lions, for instance. You know, but the affirmative action thing—that's a whole nother show. I have to invite you to another show on that one. And I think that might be a generational difference. But what's your thoughts, Demetrius, on that article?
Yeah, I think when we get to the other show, I'm probably going to lean more toward Dave. I believe that you cannot legislate morality, and that's what both the Rooney Rule and affirmative action have tried to do. I think the concept, when it was first laid out, so we have to be, as someone who has worked in strategic implementation, not getting fancy, there's a difference between concept and execution. Right? The concept of the Rooney Rule was fantastic. The idea behind it, this is what we'd like to accomplish. The goal, it was never going to work. And it hasn't, because there's 4 black coaches now. Right? And I think when they implemented the rule, there was 3, 20 years ago. Because what you're attempting to do is tell a private business owner how to run his business. A private business owner that's more likely a billionaire And he became a billionaire one of two ways. He inherited it from his parents who were billionaires, or he built it. Whether you're talking about Arthur Blank through Home Depot, Jerry Jones, whatever they are, you cannot change the moral compass of those types of people. And they're a private club. I don't care about the diversity breakdown of the entire NFL. I will say to you, the Lions hired Jim Caldwell. They've had a black coach. They have a black GM right now. And I am with Dave. Assistant coaches and GMs. I love my head coach. Happens to be a white guy. Dan Campbell's awesome. You better learn to love Dan Campbell because he's freaking awesome, right? But we have a black GM. We've had a black head coach. That speaks to the culture of how the Ford family has run this team. Set wins and losses aside, different conversation. The Steeler organization has run their organization a certain way forever. There is no question that the Steelers, no pun intended, they never needed a Rooney Rule. They never needed it because they run their organization a certain way, and they'll hire the best person. They'll fill their jobs. The Lions' assistant coaches filled with African-American guys who will get jobs. Aaron Glenn will get a head coaching job in this league one day because he's doing a great job with the Lions. They've got Antoine Randall L. There's guys on that staff that'll get chances. The idea
Former Steeler, by the way.
Right? The idea that you can legislate morality has never worked. You might get somebody to make it look pretty or say it's doing this, that, or the other thing. It doesn't matter. There'll always be a workaround. We saw fake interviews and token interviews. It was never going to be able to be executed. It wasn't sustainable. Now, what D. Smith said in his very long paper, extensively long paper, some of it is logical, some of it is overdue, some of it is just not going to happen, bro. It's just not going to happen. So you can suggest that the NFL, a privately held league of 32 billionaires, hire an outside person to sit in on their job interviews and evaluate how they're. No. Are you kidding me? No.
Would you want that as a business owner?
I wouldn't want it as the owner of a team. I wouldn't want it as a candidate. I would not. You cannot legislate. At some point in time, what you can do, if you actually are trying to solve, like developing and limiting policies for nepotism, that's silly. Because if I had a job and I had some power, I'd probably try and hire my son. I probably would. And I dare anybody to try and stop me.
Here's the thing.
Hire my son if I want.
Let me interrupt you for a second, Demetrius. What the NFL players want is they want to win. Right? And so that's my point about the pipeline. Yeah. It is as long as you're encouraging, and they do have, the NFL does have the, and the Steelers actually sent two of their coaches to it, but they have a developmental program for coaches that aspire to be coordinators or head coaches. And the Steelers sent two of their young coaches to that. And there's like 30 coaches here. So I think, to me, I think that's something that's going to take care of itself, I believe. Because number one, you're incentivizing team to hire minority candidates because you get a bonus. You get draft picks now for coordinators or head coaches. Yeah. Number two, or if they're hired away from your team.
Right.
But like, for example, but they have to be with the team for 2 seasons. So like, for example, when the head coach from the Dolphins that went to Pittsburgh for a year, well, he got picked up as the Vikings defensive coordinator. The Steelers aren't getting compensation for him because he was only there 1 year. Yep. If he had been there for a second year, they would have gotten a draft pick. Yep. So there's an incentive there. And so I think, I believe that as long as you see teams giving young coaches opportunities and more players are getting into these coaching programs, I think that it's going to take care of itself because owners want to win.
Some of them do. It may take care of itself. It may not. I don't care. If the Lions won a Super Bowl and had all white coaches, I wouldn't give a damn. Now the fact is the Lions are not one of the teams involved in, you're trying to make a rule to cover the behaviors of individual owners. That's what we're doing. And like some of the stuff D. Smith said in a vacuum might make sense. The idea that you got to write job descriptions and that's absurd. That's absurd. If you fire your head coach, everybody knows. Everybody in the city knows. Everybody in the league knows. Agents know. Other coaches know. That's kind of stuff is nonsense. You got to wait a certain number of days after the Super Bowl. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just let teams interview coaches on Super Bowl staffs. And if you're an owner, to Dave's point, and you want to win, and the best coach, his team is still in the play, you wait. You'll wait, right? That has nothing to do with racism or, there's some smart stuff you can do. You can work closer with the Fritz Pollard Alliance. Fritz Pollard Alliance is doing a very good job of developing and vetting diversity coaches. You could do that. But if you don't want to do it, it's fine. I don't really care. I don't think those teams are going to do well. They might. You might get lucky and find every smart white coach in the world, all work for you. Congratulations, it works. I don't need somebody else to prove anything to me by diversifying your business, especially a privately held business. I might have a slightly different conversation if it's a public company that takes public funds and institution. I think the conversation changes. There's no reason the coaches can't form a union. I don't know why the league opposes it. There's no reason they can't form a union. Let them form a union. That's not going to, I don't know that that's going to inherently impact diversity hiring. No. So I don't even know what D. Smith thinks that's going to impact. But I think that the idea of independent arbitrators evaluating the hiring process, if I own a team, you can kick rocks wearing flip-flops. That ain't going to happen, ever. But at the end of the day, you will never be able to legislate morality. The teams like the Steelers that do it well have always done it well and will always do it well. Period. Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the league. Full stop. Happens to be black, but he's simply, you make a best coach in the league, you're not getting past 4 or 5 without saying the name Mike Tomlin. And the fact that they've had 3 coaches in 180 years, or whatever the hell it's been, says they know how to hire coaches, right? I don't know. I just don't think you can do it. I don't think it works. I don't mind it was called the Rooney Rule because the concept was brilliant, and Mr. Rooney was a great man, great for the league in a lot of ways. Execution is the problem. The rule, the concept was fantastic. It has never been executed because there's always been workarounds. Jerry Jones wants to hire Parcells, he'll hire Parcells. He might interview some guy just to check the box, protocol nonsense, and you can't stop him from doing that because Jerry has $70 billion and he doesn't give a damn. So he'll just pay the fine. So you really can't do it anyway. But it was an interesting paper, as much of it as I got through. Right? He some of the stuff he says is simple stuff that makes sense, but you cannot legislate an issue like this.
Well, I think the most important part of that whole thing is that these are private organizations. These are not public organizations. Were they public organizations, I would have a much stronger argument. But these are publicly and privately owned organizations. So,
because I can tell you, David and Demetrius Enterprises, or D&D as we're going to call it, we ain't letting nobody come in to evaluate we're going to hire who the hell we want. And nobody can tell us who we can or can't hire. I challenge you, we're going to hire the best people, period.
So I thought it was a very interesting, and like you said, a lot of that I think is a matter of utopia and his outlook as a lawyer more than as a private citizen. Maybe it was a good thing that he stepped down at the time that he did.
Right. That was his going out the door manifesto.
Yeah.
Like David said, that was his manifesto.
He was laying a marker down.
Yeah.
Which he should do. He's leaving and he's laying a marker down for whoever's taking over for him. Right. This Lloyd Howe, who I don't know anything about.
I don't think it was fair to Lloyd Howe, by the way. You're right, but I don't think it was fair to Lloyd Howe.
Yeah, but what else was he going to do? Just leave with saying nothing?
Oh, I think he could have wrote.
So yeah. I respect what he was doing, but on the other hand, I just don't agree with a lot of what he was saying in terms of controlling how the owners hired their coaches.
Yeah, it could have been less than 100 pages,
Yeah.
And it could right, and it could have been more. These are my thoughts, not this is how you fix this one thing. He focused it on one issue, and it was really a manifesto. And I'm not mad at him. He chose to do it. Cool. I don't know that was fair to Lloyd Howe. I think now, to David's point, it puts a marker down. Lloyd Howe now has to come in and specifically address the Rooney Rule. He has to. He didn't have a choice. Right?
Yeah.
Which I don't know was fair.
Yeah. Demetrius, which quarterback do you think will have the best record? Didn't say a winning record now. I just said the best record.
Yeah.
David Carr, Jimmy G, or Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy plays for the best team. So if I understand the question correctly, I'm going to say Brock Purdy. Now I don't know that Brock Purdy is going to be the quarterback for all those wins. So I'm gonna do a caveat and say Brock Purdy's team will finish the season with the best record. Now, if you're talking about who starts and wins the most games, I really don't love very many things about Las Vegas. The Raiders. The city is fantastic. I don't love many things about the Raiders. I actually am positive on what the Saints might be able to do. But Brock Purdy's team will have the best record, and I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to cheat and get out of it just like that.
Where's Bill when I need him?
All right, I'll let David handle this one. I'll let David clear all that up. I'm going to sneak out.
I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said, Demetrius. The question with Brock Purdy is they got Trey Lance.
Yep.
And so how many games is he going to play? And but the 49ers do have the best team.
Yeah.
Now, in the case of Jimmy Garoppolo, well, what's the situation with him? Now, he doesn't have he has Brian Hoyer behind him.
Right.
So the Raiders are kind of all in on Jimmy Garoppolo if he plays. I mean, I'm not quite.
When he gets hurt week 5, the Raiders fall off a cliff.
Right. And then and maybe it's because I met this guy, the Ziad Kupti, the Saints college. He just got hired this year. I guess. He's their college scouting coordinator. But it's David is his dad, right? I think it's his dad or it's his uncle. But right. With Derek Carr, here's the thing: is the Saints division is not the strongest division in the NFL, so they might get some wins. He does have Jameis Winston behind him, if he falters. But I think that.
And don't forget Tyson Hill. I mean, come on.
Taysom Hill. We're not talking about Taysom Hill on this podcast. No, thank you.
But I'm gonna go with Carr. I think that the Saints might win more games than we think. I tend to think that the Raiders kind of let Carr go a little bit too early. They took the gambit, and because of that, I'm gonna say that Carr is the quarterback with the best record out of the 3.
So you're talking about Derek Carr in games Derek Carr plays, the record versus the games Brock Purdy plays. Because the real caveat to this question is how many games does Brock Purdy play? Right.
I'm going by the quarterback's record.
Okay, then I agree with you. I would say Derek Carr, quarterback on the field record. Yeah, not the teams, the quarterback.
Yeah, because if you look at it, the 49ers are the best team out of the
49ers best team. But I think you're right. The quarterback who have the best record, I think, is Derek Carr as well.
See, I like Brock Purdy, and the reason why is because I think Trey Lance has kind of put himself in a Jordan Love type position. And I say that because even though he might have the best raw skills still of all of the quarterbacks, I'm not sure how that equates to wins. He's mobile, but let's not say he's a Patrick Mahomes or even a Josh Allen. He does have accuracy, but somebody was trying to convince me that Tua has accuracy, and I don't see it over 20 yards, but that's just me. But I like Brock Purdy, and I think I'm thinking that he'll be the quarterback for at least 10 or 11 games. So let's see how that works out for me.
But remember, James, he is coming back from an injury.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Who else is going to? Who's their third quarterback?
Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And he'll take snaps, by the way. It's too murky right now. We just don't know. We don't know the health of either of those two guys, Lance and Purdy. And Sam Darnold, he still might have snaps in him. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see now. Here comes one stop, Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, how you doing tonight?
Very good, very good. And gentlemen, it's so great to see you and my nemesis by the name of Demetrius. It's
Good to see you, Mr. Scott. Good
great
to
to
see you.
see
I
you.
have
Great
nothing
to
better to
see
say.
you. Yeah,
And he came on. You came on just in time, Mr. Scott, because I had the Vikings question all teed up for you. As you know, your wide receiver was on a podcast this week, and they asked him who was his top 5 quarterbacks, and he said Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and who am I forgetting? But
Doesn't
anyway,
matter. It wasn't Kirk Cousins, right?
It was not Kirk Cousins. So, what did you think, Mr. Scott? Should he have, told one of those little white lies and at least put Kurt at number 5, or, what do you think?
Well, he's entitled to his opinion. I mean, this is the thing. He's entitled to his opinion. He knows the quarterback he plays with, and so he didn't put him in there. Well, then the quarterback should really look at that and say, here's the number 1 receiver, not endorsing me. I'm not being endorsed. So maybe that would make him pick up his game. So, yeah, no, you shouldn't say just, you have to go let the chips fall where they may. I mean, it's like the other day when I was saying, what was it? Bill, and his analytics and all that foolishness. He was saying something about, different people, different. And I said, well, what if I got in the ring with JK3? What if that would be me and JK3, and JK3 says, oh, that would be the longest 3 minutes of my life. Well, that's just his opinion. I would be on my bicycle. And I'd be punching, I'd be jabbing, jump, stick and move, and then tire him out. But no, there's no, Jefferson is the franchise. And I don't know why they got rid of the running back. Did he sign with anybody? Cook? I don't know.
Not yet.
Did he go to Detroit
even?
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't need him.
Well, what are you expecting from Matheson? Did you see enough from him, or was it a matter of money? Mr. Scott?
What, for Cook?
Yeah.
No, for Matheson.
For Cook?
For the guy that you got starting now, Cook is gone.
Yeah. Are you asking if letting Cook go was a matter of Madison's better or the money to pay Cook? Because I'm sure it's the money they had to pay Cook.
Well, Madison has shown a lot. Madison has shown that he's a good back. And so for some reason, they seem to be really devaluating running backs now. They just seem to, they just devaluate them. They say, well, there's only good for 2 or 3 years. And then they don't want to give them their bag. See, they want to get papered up just like the rest of the guys, but they don't want to give them their bag. And so it's, I don't know. I mean, I think Cook still has some life in him. And so is the other guy as good as Cook? No, he's not. If he was, he would have beat him out in the first place.
That's fair.
So, are you expecting for Cooks to be signed with another team? He's only asking for $6 million.
He's still a really good running back. He'll sign with somebody.
Like I say, he'll sign with somebody, but it might be some incentive type thing. I mean, maybe Demetrius can entice him to come to Detroit. I'm sure he would love it, but
we'll need him. We'll need him. He would be our third back. He can't come here.
Oh, please. My goodness.
He would be our third back.
Who's better than
who's the Jameer Gibbs, the rookie we drafted out of Alabama, is Alvin Kamara 2.0. Get ready for it. He's gonna catch 60 balls. He's gonna have another 140 carries. He's gonna be a weapon. And David Montgomery, who we got from Chicago, has less tread on the tire. You just said it. You're right. We don't have to fight right now. There is statistical data that says when a running back gets to X number of carries, his performance falls off. Dalvin Cook is at that point. Jameer Gibbs is a talented rookie, and David Montgomery is not at that point.
David Montgomery has no more tread left on the tire.
It's not true. You look at his numbers over the last 2 years.
How many teams?
Just the Bears. David Montgomery's in like his fifth year. He's just been with the Bears. I don't know. You might be thinking about somebody else. David Montgomery is a relatively young player, and he split time with the Bears. David Montgomery's tread is fine, and he's going to share time. You were right. The NFL doesn't treat running backs like workhorses anymore. Everybody wants 2 or 3 backs, split time, third down guy. But the data says that's the right way to do it. So as much as I feel bad for running backs who can't get their money, the data says, why pay Dalvin Cook $8 million when Alexander Madison is damn near as good and 2 years younger? So you pay Madison, you draft somebody, and you do that. That's the way it is. It sucks for some people. I don't disagree with them letting Cook go. Cook's going to sign with Buffalo or Miami or somebody else. He's going to split time with his brother or some other dude somewhere else because that's the league. You guys name a workhorse. Jonathan Taylor, maybe until he gets hurt, but that's why you don't do it. You don't do workhorses anymore. You do backfield by committee. That's how it works now. Minnesota's been doing it with Madison and Cook for 3 years. Nobody's really wrong here. It sucks for running backs, but they can't pay Dalvin Cook what they were paying him. They had salary cap restrictions. Minnesota had real life salary cap issues. That's why Adam Thielen's not there anymore. And when you have Madison, you can let Dalvin Cook go. I don't think they're going to miss Cook as much as most people. They're going to miss some other guys on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think their biggest problem is their running back room. I think their running back room is fine because Alexander Madison is a really good player.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about Mr. Addison, your wide receiver. He says that you're going to be just fine. What's your thoughts on Mr. Addison there, Mr. Scott?
Addison? For the Vikings?
Let me see what Mr. Anderson.
Addison, I think didn't you just draft him? I think
Jordan Addison?
Yeah.
He hadn't done enough yet. Mr. Scott, he hadn't registered Mr. Scott yet. He ain't done nothing. Mr. Scott probably heard his name, but until he does something, he ain't getting no credit.
No. He's got to find his. Yeah, he's got to find his way. I mean, they have a couple of guys that they've had. I can't think of there's a real speed guy that's there, and he's going to move up. So, the whole thing revolves around Cousins. I mean, what is Cousins going to step up and earn that money? Is he going to actually step up and earn the bag, earn the paper that he's been getting? Right now he's just a banker, as far as I'm concerned.
He doesn't have to be. That Michigan State degree has got that man paid. He doesn't have to be. He's sitting there laughing at the league. He's been laughing at the league for 6 years, cashing checks. He doesn't care. I love Kirk Cousins. He went to Michigan State. He used that Spartan degree, and he's getting paid. So by the way, speaking of Spartans, the guy he's talking about is called Jalen Naylor. He is a speedster out of Michigan State. Jalen Naylor is going to stretch the field for the Vikings. And KJ Osborne is still a really good player, right? So I think that Jalen Naylor.
And that's who I was thinking of, KJ
Osborne.
That's who I was thinking of, KJ Osborne.
I think they'll be fine. I honestly do think they'll be fine. I don't. Their struggles, if they struggle, I'm not calling for them to struggle. They lost some really key defensive players because of salary cap. That's why the league works, because of the salary cap. I think their offense is going to be fine.
Well, they got the new defensive coordinator. The new defensive coordinator. That's Flores.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's really
he's good.
Coming in,
he's good.
You know, he's
the Steelers really like the players.
We never have to worry about Detroit. We never have to worry about Detroit. You know,
okay,
Detroit,
can I do this right now, James? Can I
it's
do this right
possible.
now? We got to do this right now. Let's set a wager. I don't care. We're after dark. Whatever you want to wager, it can be. I'm willing to wager. I'm guaranteeing we win the division. If you want to go Lions-Vikings record over the season, if you want to go head up 2 games, you set the wager. We're going to beat y'all twice. We're going to win the division. Whatever you want to bet, I'm in. God has blessed me. Whatever you want to bet, I'm in. On the podcast, I'm saying it on wax. This is recorded. People see this. I am not scared. This season, whatever you want to do. You can think about it and come back to me later. I guarantee we beat y'all both games, and I'm telling you we win the division. I have zero fear. I actually told y'all this last year, by the way. I said, James, we need one more year. 24 is the year of the Lions.
Can you give this man some smelling salts? Can you give this man some smelling salts? Put an ice pack on his head. Can you give him some smelling salts?
I'm on a recorded podcast calling my shot, challenging this man, and he's talking about ice packs and bullshit like that. What do you want to wager, Mr. Scott? Tickets to a game, straight cash. I don't care, man. You tell me what you want to do. I'm in. You name the wager.
Oh man, okay.
Okay.
When you guys,
is
when
the
you guys
nightclub,
get to,
is the club in downtown? Is the club in downtown? The club in downtown Detroit floods. Is that still open?
Okay.
Do you know?
Yes. Oh, of course, his internet's giving out right now. This is when his internet takes a crap.
Oh,
really?
Am I breaking up?
Yeah, you were breaking up. You talk about floods. Go ahead, finish. What are you buying me at floods? How many drinks are you buying me at floods? I think is what we were settling, right?
I
That's
don't
the
know.
thing. This machine, I don't. Is floods
We can
still
settle
open
it
in
offline.
Detroit?
Yes.
Floods is still open in Detroit.
Yes, it is.
It
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
You're going to take me to the dinner at Floods. You're not going to beat anybody. You're going to be the worst team in the division.
James, tell me this is being recorded. James, tell me this is being recorded. All I want to know is this being recorded. I need you to archive this podcast. Send me the link. You can just send me the 4 minutes we just did. You can have your podcast back now to talk about whatever we want.
We've got witnesses. We've got David. We've got David as a witness. JK3. You can't really count him because he's biased. He's very biased against me. So I don't know. His vote might have to be just.
JK3 is biased against you because you say shit like that.
Is that the Lions are 15 years overdue because the 50-year curse ended in 2008.
That's fair. I'll take all that. Right now, do whatever you want right now. Because you got 4 months left. You got 5 months left. That's it.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Now, we've established what you have to do. If he wins,
ain't worried about it.
He has to buy you dinner. You have to buy him dinner at Floyd's. Now, what is he going to do if you win?
He ain't going to do it anyway. I don't need him to do anything. I need his ass to show up on the podcast when we win the division or the second time we beat the Vikings. I just need him to show up and listen because I'm coming with all the smoke. The chamber will be loaded. He just has to listen. I'll send him a Lions hat or a Barry Sanders jersey, and he's got to wear it on this podcast. That's what I want. I'm going to send him a jersey, and he's got to wear it on the podcast.
No, that's impossible. That's not going to happen. That's impossible. That's not going to happen. You know.
All right, it's cool. I don't need anything. I just need the pleasure of getting on here talking shit for 3 hours. I don't need anything. I'm gonna be too happy. I don't care.
But no, the gentleman that I am, the gentleman that I am. I'm not like JK3, biased. I'm not biased against people. I will come to Detroit because I have a lot of relatives and friends. Detroit's one of my cities. Okay, this is one of my cities. And I will come to Detroit. And if you win, well, I will take you beans and cornbread or Floods, Marco's Pizza on me.
Beautiful.
But when you lose, I want to come, and you're going to chauffeur me. You're going to chauffeur me around Detroit.
Yep. Done.
To the restaurant that I want.
Done. Easy. It's on wax. Recorded. Done.
Well, Dave, you heard this since I'm biased. You heard this, right?
Indeed.
Okay. All right.
I love it.
I
love it.
Dave, what do you think about the Vikings, Dave? And are they going to win their division or what?
Fuck no.
Well, we can't
be honest. Be honest.
The Vikings. I think, in addition to Cousins, it's how's their defense going to be? I mean, I think that they've been solid. And can they continue to be?
That's going to be a big question. I say, I have hopes for the new coordinator. And again, such a weak division. When you have Detroit, you can count those 2 wins, and the Bears probably be a split. So I'm counting the Detroit wins right now. I mean, that's a given.
For me, it's between the Vikings
made their living
and the Lions right now. It really is, because you look at Green Bay, and what has Love done yet? I mean, I think Green Bay is vulnerable. I think Chicago is vulnerable. Although they've made a lot of moves in the draft and all this kind of stuff. That they got Chase Claypool. They stole him off the Steelers. Which we got.
I would have given him to him, but that's another.
Got a second round draft pick, but I think it's really going to come down to the Vikings and the Lions, and then for the Vikings, it's Cousins, but it's also the defense. And and for the Lions, I think
I agree. That great
right
analysis
now, I think
there.
a lot of people
very
would
good analysis. With the new.
Demetrius, let's talk about Amon. He said that he's going to remember those 16 wide receivers that was taken ahead of him, and we also. A guy that I have hopes for, even though he's been suspended for 6 games, is Jameson Williams. Can he hit the ground running in week 7? What's up with your Lions? You already told Mr. Scott you're going to beat the Vikings twice, so I'm assuming that you're not fearing the Bears. And, I mean,
nobody.
What are you expecting from the Packers?
I don't give a damn about the Packers. We finished the season 8-2 for a reason, because our young talent started to mature. So to specifically answer your question, Amon-Ra St. Brown made the Pro Bowl in his 2nd year last year. He's a fantastic player. He is intrinsically motivated. He is that dude. He legitimately remembers all 16 guys drafted ahead of him, plays with a chip on his shoulder. I never have to worry about him. He's going to show up every week, and he's going to ball out. Jameson Williams is amongst the 10 fastest players in the league. He had 2 plays last year. One of them was like a 70-yard touchdown. The other was a 40-yard reverse. He was coming off an ankle injury. Maybe it was an ACL at Alabama his senior year. The kid is just fast. He gives a weapon that we didn't have. Jameson Williams, when he comes back, is a take the top off the defense type receiver. The safety's got to understand the defense coordinator has to worry about him on Wednesday afternoon. Now, right now, we could use another receiver in our receiver room. If you ask me, am I concerned about anything? That might be it. I would be thrilled if they signed DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think they're going to do it. I think they like the guys in the room. If you ask me if I was afraid, it would be that. But I just mentioned a rookie running back who's going to add to to the passing game in Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm not worried. And it's not to put anybody else down. I didn't actually say anything bad about the Vikings because I don't have to. What I said was they lost players on defense, which is true. I can tell you the names. They lost to Darius Smith. They lost a great linebacker in Kendricks. They lost Patrick Peterson. They lost Cameron Dantzler. They lost some really good players on that football team. That's all I said. Now, if we all believe the Vikings were a legit 13-4, we're going to ignore their single-digit wins, the number of games they won by 3 points or less, that's fine. My confidence comes from, I think the Lions finished the season 8-2, and I think they're better. I think they got better in the offseason, and they finished the season 8-2. That's where my confidence comes from. I don't think the Lions are going to win a division because the Vikings are going to suck. I don't think the Vikings are going to suck. I think the Vikings will still win 10, maybe 11 games and probably be a wild card team. I just think we are now the kind of team that can win 12 or 13 games based on how we finished and what we added.
Demetrius is delusional. Demetrius is delusional. And
what did I say that wasn't factual? Tell me something I said that wasn't factual. I don't say random nonsense statements. I gave you stats. I gave you facts. I gave you data. That's what I did.
I just want to go back to his, just raving about Michael Pineda. Oh, Michael Pineda.
This is not about Michael Pineda has nothing to do with the Lions. Well, see, this is what he does. Well, yeah, he talks bullshit about baseball that has nothing to do with the Lions winning the division.
I can't hear you now.
Because you're talking about baseball and we're talking about the Lions.
I got to fix my computer. I got to fix my things. I can't. Whenever Demetrius comes on, he causes problems with my thing. Demetrius causes
cheap-ass equipment. You get a new computer, bro. I hear David just fine.
I'll be back next week. And Demetrius, I am going to put you in your place.
I can't wait. I can't wait for me to give you data and stats for why the Lions are better than the Vikings, and you bring up a baseball pitcher. I don't have to defend that. It's clear. It's clear. And get a new computer, bro. That's it, David. I give you stats and data, players they lost, how we're going to improve, and he talks about a Tigers pitcher. That's what I deal with. But it's cool. And he won't show up when I win. He ain't coming to Detroit. He is not setting foot in the 3-1-3 when we bust that ass twice this year. And I'm so not worried about it. But it's fun every now and then to do that. Let's get back to real sports talk, not nonsense.
Let's see. Where are we at here? Let's talk a little bit about CeeDee Lamb. Even though Don is not here, he just sent me some pictures. He's actually at Disneyland with the grandkids.
Nice. He's where he should be.
Yes. But what do you think about the Cowboys? Dave talking about old nemesis. Even we've been to the Super Bowl since they have, but that's another discussion for another time when Donna gets here, probably. We just talked about how the influence of running backs has been downplayed. But Dave, is Dallas the exception? Does Tony Pollard have to come back in order for them to be successful?
Well, I mean, it's not that the running back position isn't important. I mean, you just can't pass the entire game. So the running back position is important. I think it's a matter of, as Demetrius had said, more teams are platooning. But like the Steelers, they tend to up until last year, they were still going the workhorse way. 2 years ago, Najee Harris had a tremendous number of touches. So, for the Cowboys, yeah, they can be the exception. If they have a good offensive line, and this is what's going to drive everything. But if they have a good offensive line and they get a good running game established, well, yeah. I could see where Tony Pollard could have a singular season. I don't, now the question comes, will that continue to be year in and year out? And the difficulty for the running backs is the wear and tear if they get too many touches.
What's your thoughts on the importance of Tony Pollard as far as success for the Dallas Cowboys?
I think it's important. I think, but David just, unlike Mr. Scott, David has really smart points, and he just made one twofold. One, the line is critical, right? And Dallas has a solid offensive line, but it is a balance, right? You can't pass all the time. So the idea that they're just going to run the ball there are a few teams that can still do that, but not many want to do that. So I think that Ronald Jones is a solid RB2 for them, and Pollard will get a lot of touches that are not running plays. He'll get creative. They'll get creative in the passing game because Mike McCarthy calls the plays now. Historically, he has used his running backs in the pass game very effectively. And I think with Ronald Jones and the depth they have there, they have some other young running backs. They will use that to set up their passing game. Like the Lions are a running team that didn't use this play action off the run. Jared Goff's one of the most effective play action guys in the league. Dallas might do a little differently. They're gonna have a creative passing game where Dak throws a lot, but the running backs will be an integral part of that. And it's really just about finding ways to get your best players touches. I don't care if it's a running back or not. We talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown a few minutes ago. He gets jet sweeps. He lines up in the backfield sometime. We're in an age now where it's not quite positionless like basketball, but if you're a guy like Tony Pollard, they're going to find a way to get Tony Pollard to football because he's that good. Maybe it's turning around and handing him the ball, but it doesn't have to be that way. It could be jet sweeps. It could be wildcat. You get your best players to football. And if he's running back 1, running back 2, I don't really care. Good play callers, creative offensive minds, find ways to get touches to their best players. And that's what I think Dallas's chief concept will be. Get the ball in the hands of our best players. And CeeDee Lamb will benefit from that. Ultimately, CeeDee Lamb's going to get his bag. He's a guy that won't have to cry about his bag. He'll get it. He'll get it back from somebody. He'll get it back from somebody. He's that good.
Well, you already went to the CeeDee Lamb. What's your thoughts on CeeDee Lamb, Dave? Does he deserve an extension?
Well, I think really it's not so much does he deserve the extension. It's what is the cap situation of the team, and that's so many times that's what happens is you have a player that's good. They're in a position to start to cash in, but then with the team that they're with, the cap situation comes into play. And it may not be this year, but it could be the outlying years.
Yeah.
Because now that what the teams have to do is when they're negotiating contracts, they're having to think out 3, 4, 5 years, depending on what's happening. And so I don't think it's a matter of CeeDee Lamb. He's a good wide receiver, very good wide receiver. So he's going to get money somewhere.
Right.
And it's just a matter of where. Now, teams can play around with their salary cap a lot. They can renegotiate a contract, with a veteran player to free up money. They can do it, but again, it's a little bit more complicated in the NFL, where it's like a 3D chessboard. I make this move. It's not only about this year, next year. It's 2 or 3 years out.
Right, and there's always that game that the agents play with. Wait until a guy gets a contract so you could be the next guy to get the big contract. There's all that, right? So when Tyreek Hill got his deal, then it's like, okay, DeAndre Hopkins is out there. He's going to get a bag of money from somebody pretty soon. I think Devontae got one a couple of years ago, and it starts to set. And maybe Stephon Diggs was before that. Well, Justin Jefferson's got a bag coming. I don't think he got his yet, or maybe he already got it. And so those guys are going to play, hey, where does Jamar Chase has got a bag coming, right? So it's that whole game of slotting in guys around other guys' contracts. It's a really weird and crazy sort of system, but who's coming up next? Because then he's got to be the next guy. Add $1 to the last guy so I can be the highest guy, whatever. But to your question, CeeDee Lamb is probably top 10. It depends on what you like and what you think. I just named 5 or 6 guys I love more than CeeDee Lamb. So I don't know if he's in, Mike Evans, underrated to me. But there are guys out there. But then again, it comes out of what Dave says. What is Dallas's cap situation? Will Dallas be in a cap situation where they can't afford to pay CeeDee Lamb what CeeDee Lamb's agent believes that CeeDee Lamb is worth. And if they can't, they have to make a move and let him go. Yeah. I think he'll get it. I think he'll get it.
Zeke's still out there. We talked about Dalvin Cook. Who gets the job first, Demetrius?
It's a great question. I think the first doesn't matter. I think they both won't get. So this is gonna sound bad, right? Training camp sucks. Training 2-a-days suck, is what I hear, right? I think neither one of them signs till week 3 of the preseason because they're not trying to do 2-a-days with anybody, right? And there are a few teams that need depth in their running back rooms. They'll both get jobs. The Bengals might take one. Buffalo might take one. There are teams that could use a veteran running back presence to take, 100 carries, 130 carries this year in a platoon situation with an existing back. Maybe a team like the Colts with a player coming back from injury. Their jobs, they know it. They're not worried about it. I just think the idea of, do I got to go do 2-a-days in late July and early August? So the time frame is going to probably be middle of August for both of them. I don't know which one is first. I don't think it matters. I just think both of them are in a position where they can avoid 2-a-days, or at least early 2-a-days, right? And so you'll see these guys trickle in somewhere, and there'll be injuries in training camp to somebody somewhere, or preseason injury that might, lift the bag, make the bag a little bit bigger for whoever's offering. But there's at least 3 or 4 teams out there that could use another veteran presence in their running back room, and both of those guys will end up with jobs. No question.
Dave, that sounds good, but these ain't like 2-a-days with Mel Blount and back in the day. These are 2-a-days when the quarterback wears a red jersey and the only thing that the only sweat he gets is if he spills a glass of Gatorade on his jersey. I mean, come on, what's your thoughts, Dave? I
know with the Steelers, I don't think that most teams do 2-a-days anymore. They've really limited the amount of practicing. Now they'll do like meetings and stuff in the morning. So
kind of walk through
with the Steelers training camp, they come out at 1:55, they start practice, and then they're done by 4:00 for their outdoor practice. Now, before then, they're inside in their team meetings and scheming and all this kind of stuff. But they claim that the Steelers camp is a hard-hitting camp, and it's not. It's not that hard hitting. I mean, they do have like the backs on backers. There is contact, and you do have players that get hurt now. And that's a concern I could see for players because they're not making money during camp. The way the NFL works is that their pay is the 18 weeks of the regular season, and then they kind of divide it up and then they go out that way.
Yep.
And so for a player, especially if they don't have a lot of guarantees, well, that's a little bit of a risk that they're taking. And so now, you guys were talking about Dalvin Cook before. I think for him, probably his agent and Cook, they're probably waiting for camp to start. Because as soon as camp starts that first week, you get a lot of people with soft tissue injuries, hamstring injuries, this kind of stuff. Then all of a sudden the team needs a running back. And so usually once they're under the rule of 51 under the salary cap right now, but they'll usually have a pad to account for injuries to sign somebody like that. And, if you could get Dalvin Cook for $6 to $8 million, like a 1-year rental, I would see teams jumping on that. And I think that's with the number of free agents right now. They're waiting for that camp to start because then all of a sudden new opportunities are going to be created.
Dave, the Bungles quarterback Joe Burrow on his wide receiver Chase. He said the best players must be close uh, to be a great team. Uh, what do you think? Can a quarterback wide receiver relationship make or break a team chemistry, Dave?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think that team chemistry is very important. Um, uh, I think in most sports, you guys were talking about the basketball team with one guy that they said, well, hey, he can't. These two players can't be in the same
Right.
locker room, and so that has an impact. With the Steelers a few years ago, the players voted Juju Smith, Schuster, their most valuable player, which was a vote of the players. Well, AB, he right after that, he kind of melted down. That was the season when he quit on the team, and then and they needed wins at the end of the year to get to the playoffs. And so yeah, I think it can have an impact because there's a balance. You have to have a strong ego to be a professional athlete. I mean, just to get the top level performance, you have to have that belief in yourself and that ego. And you want, in football, wide receiver, they want to catch the ball. But on the other hand, if you have too much of that, that can create disruption. I mean, on the sidelines, you know, bothering the quarterback. Hey, I was wide open. Wide receivers is going to say they were wide open every time. So at some point, the egos have to be put down in order for the team to be successful. And that's a balance that every team and the athletes that are on those teams have to face. So I think that the idea that to be a great team, that there needs to be good chemistry between the quarterback and wide receiver. Yeah, I think that that's true. Especially it becomes most important when Burrow's not throwing the chase. Because that's where that relationship comes in, so that he has the confidence. Well, yeah, he didn't throw it to me. I was open. He didn't throw it to, but he's going to get me the next time. And that's where that relationship comes in.
Yeah, he has a good relationship with Higgins too. Uh, they do have one of the best wide receiver cores in football, and we'll talk about that in a minute, Dave. But Demetrius, what's your thoughts about that chemistry? I know how high you are on your quarterback, and I love Armand. What's your take? Is there chemistry
So
there?
yeah, so I think like in terms of the Lions, there is so the word close in your question is where I struggle. They gotta be close. Maybe. I think it helps. But I think if they respect each other, particularly Dave just made a point. If the receivers respect that quarterback when he doesn't throw to them, like the example I would say is Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens. That's the one. I just don't think Terrell Owens respected how great a quarterback Donovan McNabb was, and by all accounts, a good guy. I just don't think the respect was there because that gets tested when, as David said, Jamar Chase thinks he's open and Joe Burrow doesn't throw the ball to him. That's when that gets. Do they got to be close? I don't know. They got to have respect, and that's what I see on the Detroit Lions. When guys talk about Jared Goff, guys outside of Detroit, guys on the team talk about Jared Goff, it has a different tone. The way he carries himself, the stuff he does in the community, I think it garners that respect, right? It demands that respect. And then he goes out and performs on the field also. Now it's like, I don't think you're going to see Amon-Ra St. Brown come back to a huddle chirping at Jared Goff because he thought he was open. Because Jared Goff is demonstrating consistently he knows where to go with the football. Even if it doesn't work out. If he throws an interception, overthrows a guy, whatever, he has demonstrated certainly over the last year and a half, he's really comfortable where to go with the football. So I think there needs to be respect. I think if they're close, that's cool. But then you got a whole other set of problems because what are the other guys going to think? These guys are too close. You run the risk of something like that. Favoritism. I think it's got to be respectful. on good teams, that culture starts at the top. It won't matter with the Steelers. Mike Tomlin says, Kenny Pickett's your quarterback. Yeah, because you're going to have issue with Mike Tomlin. You come back to the huddle chirping at Kenny Pickett, and Mike Tomlin sees it. That's just not the way we do business. He'll say something like that. He'll tell the reporters, I'll handle that. And he's not going to talk about it, right? We'll take care of that in-house. He'll say something like that. He'll go talk to those guys, squashed. Organizational culture is the best thing, right? If they like each other or not, I don't really give a damn. If you got the right kind of organization, even if that doesn't exist, if they're not close, it never manifests itself on the football field. All I care about is winning games. So you guys can hate each other's guts. If you win a Super Bowl, I don't care. Right? But organizationally, I think the best way to address it, and I'm not sucking up to you two guys, Mike Tomlin is just one of my favorite coaches, right? I think he deals with this. He builds a culture in an organization where he says, if I tell you Kenny Pickett's the quarterback, don't ever, stab him in the back, say something to the press, or bitch at him on the field. We don't do business that way. That's what I want. I want an organization that does business a certain way. And certain things are acceptable and certain things are not. Because you can do it once and you're never doing it again. And I believe we have that in Dan Campbell. I think we have a very Mike Tomlin-like coach in Dan Campbell. I don't know if they ever cross paths. I'm a Dan Campbell guy, as we say. I'm a DC guy. And there are things that remind me of Mike Tomlin in the way he goes about business. No nonsense. We don't do that.
I'm going to, since you brought this, and we're talking about quarterbacks and wide receivers, I'm going to ask you guys, because there's two rumors coming out of Buffalo. You tell me which one you believe, Dave. Number one, that blow up between the quarterback and the coach and Stephon Diggs. The first rumor was that Stephon was saying that he wasn't getting enough targets. He's the second most targeted player in the NFL. The second rumor is that he was concerned, or he was expressing his dismay at the fact that the Bills hadn't pursued D-Hop. Now, I can't see how a player that's concerned about his targets would want D-Hop on the team. I mean, how many passes did Gabe catch last year? What's your thoughts on this, and which do you think is more likely, Dave?
Well, first of all, winning solves a lot of personal issues.
Yeah.
And I think that Buffalo has had a team that they feel should be in the Super Bowl. They have a quality team that they think should be there. Have they been there? And so I think that for some of the players, I think that might be frustration. That they're not getting to the Super Bowl. They're not lifting the trophy the way they think that they should be. So in terms of which one is true, hey, I'm not getting the ball thrown enough to me, or hey, we should be bringing in Hopkins. I think that's just an example of frustration. And again, in terms of the chemistry of the team, I don't think that that's necessarily means that there's bad chemistry within the team. A lot of times, a player can have an outburst. They're frustrated because they didn't win. And so I get that. I mean, that frustration has to go somewhere. And a lot of times it goes from the tip of the mouth, right out there. So I don't think either. To me, it's more frustration at not reaching the level that they thought that they should be.
Quite the diplomat there, Dave. What do you
No,
think?
incredibly diplomatic. I'm not going to be nearly that diplomatic, and and it's cribbing after dark. So honestly, both rumors can be true. In a given moment during a game, frustration at feeling like he's not contributing, and you lose that game. Really, really good players, really, really good athletes, really, really good anybody in anything, when they fail, and a loss of an NFL game, particularly a playoff game, feels like failure, and you feel like I could have done more. The level of emotion built up in someone, and not to toot my own horn, but the uniqueness of my personal podcast is that I do it right after the game. The whole point of my podcast is that it's within 30 minutes of the end of the game, because I want to genuinely give you, win, lose, tie, whatever, you're going to get everything that we all feel right after the game. I could do my podcast Monday or Wednesday. It would not be the same, right? So I never give too much credence, good or bad, to anything an athlete says right after they lost a playoff game. I just think that's unrealistic. Is that what he meant at that moment? Of course. He's a highly competitive, uber talented guy who craves winning. That's why you want that dude on your team. You understand that same dude might say some shit you don't like right after you lose a playoff game, right? And by the way, he wants to win. So my feeling on Stephon Diggs is whatever it is we're talking about, it is all rooted, and that dude is innately wired to want to do whatever it takes to win. So he can mean throw me the ball more and go get D-Hop. He can mean all that. He can mean both of them. They won 13 football games and left one out there on the table because of a really unfortunate situation. They could have been a 14-win football team. This kind of shit takes care of itself on 14-win football teams. This is a media creation. Very few people in Buffalo, New York care about this. Why? Because they won 13 games. They're not far enough away. They are a team that might need to tweak a little bit, this or that. He's not necessarily wrong. You add D-Hop, are they better? Of course. But he's not thinking about all the salary cap ramifications to adding D-Hop. Does D-Hop want to do a one-year deal to play in Buffalo when he might get a 4-year deal somewhere else? All that stuff he doesn't care about. Just like he didn't care after the game when he was frustrated, pissed, whatever he was feeling after they lost, and he thought, if you throw me the ball more, we would have won. He might be right, but that's what he felt. And guys who compete at that level come with a risk of that kind of stuff happening. That's just the way that works. So all these things can be true. It's what makes them great. And they won 13 games, could have won 14. So you just live with this. You just say, okay, whatever, show up at camp, bro. We'll cut the checks, you catch the balls, and you live with it. Now, if they were a 6-11 team, this would be a big deal. And you might have to make some moves. 13-win football teams handle this kind of stuff because they probably have a culture in their locker room and a structure in their organization that can withstand this. He ain't going nowhere. They might get D-Hop, they might not. But this is a media story.
Yeah, that's what Josh says. It's a media story.
It's a decent media story, but they won 13 games. So,
Dave, at $31 million, the wide receiver core for the Steelers is one of the most expensive in the NFL. It's, I think, right on par with the Bungles and the Bills, as a matter of fact. And there's another 4 team. I forget exactly who they were. But, Dave, this is kind of a two-part question here. First of all, when it comes to the wide receiving core, why not exchange quality for quantity and pursue D-Hop? And number two, we have our defensive coaches, Roberts and Faulkner, assess the tight ends and the RBs on NFL.com. And Famu says it's very exciting with the new additions. Dave, let's start with the wide receiving core, that $31 million that we're putting out there. What do you think?
Well, I think a chunk of that is paying Deontay Johnson. He signed a contract. But I think, right now, I think that the, in terms of quantity, they got plenty of wide receivers right now. You have Deontay Johnson, you have George Pickens, who was a rookie last year. He's coming into his second year. So you have your two, X and Y receivers, the guys outside. Now the question comes into the slot. You have Calvin Austin, who had hurt his foot last year, so didn't get to play. He's a speedster. They signed Robinson, so he costs a little bit of money. And so you got a couple guys that can play in at the slot. And for me, we were just talking about chemistry. Well, now you have second-year quarterback Kenny Pickett now, who's going to have to distribute the ball to all these guys, and Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington, who the tight end that they just drafted. So, in terms of pursuing D-Hop, it's why. I don't see that really as a position of need. And now that said, Deontay Johnson, he set a record where he had so many receptions last year, he didn't score a single touchdown. In fact, he dropped 2 passes in the end zone, which is just unacceptable. So, they're going to have to improve on their red zone offense in terms of scoring and not dropping touchdown passes, frankly. But I don't see what D-Hop would add to the Steelers in terms of their wide receiver core. I think that they have a pretty good room. And then you have other guys on the periphery like Miles Boykin, who can contribute, but is also a key special teams player. They had to let Anthony Miller go in part because they didn't have room. They had too many guys.
Dave, I would gladly give up Allen Robinson for D-Hop. I would gladly give up Miles Boykin or Des Fitzpatrick for D-Hop. I could put them all in a package. Cody White, Dan, what's his name? Cicera.
Do you need D-Hop, Mr. King? Do you need D-Hop? Need is the word I'm saying.
I think D-Hop gives us at least 2 more winning games.
Okay, so have we evaluated the cost there? So can you guys just add D-Hop without moving any other pieces, like from a salary cap, right? It's going to cost you something. Who's that player? Who's that defensive lineman? Who's that third linebacker? Who's that special teamer guy that you got to give up now to get D-Hop?
I would gladly give up, like I said, I would gladly give up Allen Robinson.
Okay.
The reason they have Allen Robinson in there, though, is to give some veteran leadership. He's not there so much for catching a bunch of balls, because right now Deontay Johnson is 27. He was the oldest guy in that wide receiver group, and so Robinson was brought in to be a leader. And I think that's underappreciated.
Yeah, James doesn't care about leaders. James wants guys who will catch footballs.
Right, but that's not the role that Robinson's playing. Like this goes back to whenever they brought in Jericho Cotchery from the Jets a while back. This goes back to when they had the Raiders guy that came in. He was a first-round draft pick that played special teams for the Steelers, but they were brought in for their leadership roles with young wide receivers. And so they have George Pickens in there.
But see,
what's that going to do to his development?
I think Johnson and Pickens are a great duo. You don't need Hopkins. That's why I kept yelling the word need. You don't need DeAndre. You have some other need somewhere else. You got DeAndre Johnson and George Pickens and a bunch of other guys to fill their roles. I don't think you need them. I don't think you need them.
No, well, like I said, I think it would give. I think we'd win 2 more games, and I think D Hop would also be a leader. But I mean, I could also see a role for Delvin Cook, but Delvin Cook, I think, would upset the chemistry.
Yeah.
Whereas I think D Hop could contribute to the.
I think D Hop could be a +2 wins on a lot of teams, not yours.
Yeah.
I don't. There's only. I mean, how many targets can he get? Are you taking targets away from Deontay Johnson and George Pickens to give to D Hop? Because Dave was bringing that point up. You're stunning the growth of young receivers under controllable contracts, by the way, right? And you're going to give D Hop 18 million. Well, I don't know how much he wants or what the number is. I think there are teams that need him. I don't think yours is one of them. I think you guys probably have other needs. If you have the money and it won't mess up your cap, I think you can spend it on other stuff. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we could definitely spend it on the defensive side of the ball, I think.
Yep. Never enough pass rush.
Well, yeah, I mean, the group that concerns me a little bit is the inside linebacker group.
Right.
And, they've completely redone it. And then you have a couple free agents that they signed, Elandon Roberts. But they could use some more depth there. I think at inside linebacker. On the edge, they signed. I think it was Golden.
Right.
To bring him in there. Defensive backs, they're going to have a tough time because they lost Cam Sutton, they lost Terrell Edmonds, which I think, and especially Cam Sutton because he was so versatile. And Peterson coming in, again, I think that's a Band-Aid. That's a short-term fix. I'm a little bit worried about the defense, frankly. A lot of people are very confident in the defense. I don't share that confidence.
I think we have an above average defense. I don't think we have a defense that anyone is really afraid of. But hey, what are we? 57 days away from the start. So, Dave, you've been gone for a while. Had a good vacation. I didn't know where you were because I was still getting my invitations to the Monday Steelers show. That's why I didn't know when you were in Munich. I was like, are you back already? But anyway, Dave, why don't you give us your final thoughts? And I don't know what it's like in Pittsburgh. I called my buddy one day and it's 94 degrees. I called the next day, it's raining cats and dogs. What's going on up there? Couldn't be global warming. I mean, but
I guess my thoughts are really, hey, this is the slowest sports day,
right,
of the year, but we had plenty to talk about.
We did,
and so I'm really anxious.
I can find shit for us to talk about.
There's always something going on, and
baseball.
So we talked about the Mountain West Conference last week. I mean,
yeah, we did. Yeah.
But what I'm really looking forward to is training camp. I'm going to be going up the Steelers training camp. I think the players report the 26th and they start the 27th. I'll be up the 28th and 29th. And then that Saturday, which is the 29th, right after the Steelers training camp, I'm driving up to Pittsburgh to catch the Pirates game. And what I really like about the Steelers training camp, not all the teams do this anymore, but they go down to St. Vincent's College. The players are in dormitories. It's a lot nicer than what it was. They have air conditioning now. Back in the day, they didn't have air conditioning. But and it's a really great opportunity for the fans and the players to kind of bond, and you don't get that everywhere. And it's free. The Steelers don't charge. The parking is free. There's no entry fee. You can just go in and watch the Steelers train. And I think that they're going to have 16 practices that are going to be open to the public. So I'm going to see two of them on the 28th and 29th, and I'm really looking forward to it. They're not going to be hitting those days, because right at the beginning they're worried about soft tissue injuries, so they're more focused on dynamic stretching. They will have their helmets on, but no pads. But you'll still get to see the players running through the motions, and it's, for me, it's a lot of fun.
It's football. It's the greatest thing ever, right?
Right.
It's the best. We missed it for 6 months, of course.
So that's my final thought.
Demetrius.
I'll jump in. We didn't do enough baseball tonight, so I'm going to do one more. No, we did plenty, but so I like to celebrate, right? I use my final thoughts usually to celebrate somebody, and so there have been a lot of great Venezuelan players in the game of baseball, and guys like Luis Aparicio, Maglia Ordonez, Omar Vizquel, David Concepcion. There have been a ton of them, right? But potentially the greatest, and I'm biased, right, is playing his last season of baseball in Detroit, Michigan. His name's Miguel Cabrera, right? And I don't have to tell people, if you've watched a little bit of baseball, you know who Miggy is. And I could do the Bill thing where I read you all his stats. Some part of me wants to dedicate a minute of this to Bill because we missed him, and I want to tell you where his grandmother went to school back in Venezuela. I'm not going to do that. James is like, no, don't do that. You're right. I'm not going to do that. I just think that.
How many goats did the family have?
Right. The number of family goats. I don't hide it. It's clear. I love the game of baseball. The Lions are my passion, but I have a deep, deep love for the game of baseball. Whenever you can see me get excited, whether I'm angry about rules changes or whatever. But since 2008, watching this guy hit baseballs for the Detroit Tigers has been an absolute pleasure. 2012, he won Triple Crown, and I thought it was underappreciated. That's not easy to do, and he did it. He won the MVP. He's got 7 Silver Sluggers. He's won Hank Aaron Awards. There was a time where I was tempted to say everything with me in baseball starts at 4. Take out Willie Mays and Hank Aaron. I'm not sure he's not the greatest right-handed hitter of all time after them. I feel like I could have a conversation. There are guys who are going to shoot me down, right? And they're going to. Ted Williams is a left-handed hitter. Mickey Mantle was a switch hitter. Roberto Clemente is in the conversation, of course, right? I feel like there's a conversation there. Willie McCovey and there's other guys. But I have gotten to watch, 17 of his 20 years in the game, or 16 of his 20 years in the game in a Detroit Tiger uniform. And it was the 10 years where they were competing for World Series. Unbelievable. From 08 to 16. When baseball is good in Detroit, it's really, really beautiful thing. And this dude seems to love the game, played the game, he's always smiling, right? And he was just a fabulous hitter, a fantastic hitter. And the game has a lot of parts. I'm not on here saying he's on that list. That list begins at 4 for all-time great. He's not there. But just a right-handed swinging hitter, it was a joy watching this guy for 15 years swing a bat in Detroit. And even now, he's coming off the bench. He's playing part-time. And he singled in a key run in a game 2 weeks ago. And he's at first base smiling like a 7-year-old in a Little League game. That's what baseball is meant to be. And that's, for me, it's like there's still a joy to that game. That's a kid's game. The NFL's a grown man game. It is. Basketball at times a grown man game. Hockey might be the most talented of all these guys because they do what they do on ice skates. Right? Baseball is and always will be a kid's game. When I watch it takes me back to Little League.
Right? Well, I think I know the answer, Demetrius, but all-star uniforms, should they be in the team's uniforms, or are you in favor of the National and American League uniforms?
I want him wearing a Tiger uniform every time he sets foot on the field. I would have them wearing their team's uniforms. I think that's giving some flavor. But now they need to do these dynamic uniforms. And I think last night they were trying to do Mariner themed, right? Two different sets of Mariners because the game was in Seattle. I used to love it back in the days when they were wearing their own jerseys. I'm a old man throwback when it comes to baseball, and I'm a unicorn. I am in the minority. I know it. But Miguel Cabrera is a 40-year-old man who still plays like a little kid. And if my Achilles and my knees and my back and my shoulders and my neck would allow me to play baseball, right? I would play it for free. I'd play in some rec league every Wednesday night. No, SPORTSKRIB is Wednesday night. Every Thursday night, I'd play in some rec league. My body is not going to have any of that. That's what makes the game the game. When I talk about it, I'm almost always laughing. I probably reference my dad and my brother every time. That's what that game is. And that dude plays that game the way everybody should play that game. And if you get a chance to catch a Tiger game this year, hopefully he plays. And I swear to you, if he gets a hit, he's going to be at first base cracking jokes with the other team's first baseman. He's going to smile. He's going to gesture. He's got this weird thing he does when he check swings, right? And the catcher wants the first base umpire to call the check swing. He will point down there, like to say, "See, I didn't swing. You asked. You tell him." And it's so funny, right? Nobody else ever done it. So a lot of it's just this is the last season, and it's still a joy to watch him. He might be the greatest Venezuelan ever, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal. Go down the list of greatest Venezuelan base. Andres Galarraga. I mentioned some of them. I missed some. It's a big deal. And they're, Louis Aparicio, people are going to say, shut up, right? They're King Felix Hernandez, people that might tell me to kick rocks. I'm biased to my guy, right? And it's a big deal to say he might be the greatest Venezuelan of all time. And he's in the top 5 greatest right-handed hitters. But I don't think I'm out of line saying either one of those things. It's just great, man. That's the dude you want on your team. So Miguel Cabrera's last season, I'm going to enjoy the rest of it. I watch as many games as I can because I no longer live in the city, but I have the ability to watch every single game, and it's worth every penny. And I watch as much as I can, and they're growing as a team. It's still wonderful watching that dude play baseball. So that's my final thoughts is Miguel Cabrera's last season.
All right, guys. Well, hey, great show tonight. We still managed to go over, but
That's Mr. Scott and that bullshit. That's what it was. That was we blamed that on. You shouldn't have let that dude on the show. I want to see him again. The Lions beat the Vikings.
All right, guys. Good to have you back, Dave.
All right.
Soon.
All right, guys.
And hey, hope to see everybody next week.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Take care, guys.